Hello and welcome to Paper Plays Julie K.
Welcome everyone, and thank you so much for stopping by. Today I decided to do kind of a project share, project update on something I've been working on. I did decide to go ahead and try participating in Roxy's Journal of Stitchery, and Rachel is creating a Journal of Stitchery, and so in December her and her sister did produce some videos on creating some basic stitching, and so we made samplers with those stitches, and so I'm going to share those with you guys, and then also just share some of the supplies that I'm using. I am very new to stitching. I haven't done a lot of hand stitching other than maybe the running stitch when I do make some of my flowers. And then also when I was quite little in junior high, we made these little pillows, and I think we did some basic stuff like a back stitch and and a running stitch and a few stitches like that on the pillows. So like I said, my knowledge is pretty minimal. I also think maybe at around the same time I maybe tried cross stitching because my mom has cross stitched a little bit but not a lot. But I really haven't done any stitching in my adult life, so I thought this would be a fun challenge. And so in the description box below, I will link Rachel's channel, which is Roxy's Creations. Also, I will link her sister's channel. Like I said, they do have videos, and they're taking turns showing us different things. And then I will just be doing updates as I go along, and just showing you what my progress on my little journal of stitchery. And so this is so far what I have completed. I have completed the stitches that Rachel and her sister showed us, and there was 20 stitches, and so I did write them down as we went along. And I did create 3 samplers. 2 of them, this is for the first 10 stitches. These are for the last 10 stitches. And then I also tried doing it on cross stitch material. I just found that a little bit easier just to get comfortable with the stitches. So I did incorporate some of what we learned on these 2 onto this one, just so I could get kind of the hang of doing some of the stitches a little bit easier. And so I did have these 3 samplers to show you guys, and then hopefully I'll be working on a title page, but I haven't started that yet. December was kind of a bad month for our family. And I'll show you some of the supplies that I dug out. I have really minimal basic supplies. And so again, here was the first 10 stitches that we did, or that Rachel and her sister Sarah taught us to do. They're pretty basic. As you can see, I can't sew straight. I have a few little goof ups, I guess, with some of these. These are the French knots, and I think, what were these ones called? The colonial knot stitches. And I had a few issues with that one, but I decided just to leave it and show you guys, just so if somebody else wants to play along and you're scared to show your work, just know that you're not the only one out there that's really new to stitching. So again, that's kind of why I'm on sharing with you guys today. So that was the first one that we created, and then here was the last 10 stitches that we did. And this one I had a little bit more fun with. One of them that we did was the bullion knot, and then I went up and created some little roses out of that stitch. I had seen that in a book, so I thought that would be fun to try. So I did kind of do my own thing slightly on those, and then also I made this little pinwheel down here with the blanket stitch, because I saw that again in the book that I had bought on doing some stitching. And so I had used this stitch there. I'm not going to go into all the details of the stitches, because if you watch the channels that I'll link below, you can find the videos on the different stitches. And again, since I'm pretty new to them, I'd have to refer to my list. I can't name them all off the top of my head. But I do like how they turned out. And the first time, I'm not even sure with material, because like I said, I'm pretty new to this stuff. I just use material that I have bought over the past few years at the thrift store that I use in other projects. And so this one, there was a really lightweight, I'm sure some sort of cotton material. And then this one was a little bit heavier material, and I did better on this slightly heavier material for stitching than I did on this lighter one. So I just wanted to, compare materials. And of course, the easiest one I thought to stitch on was the cross stitch material, which has like little squares, so it's easy to count and stay on a straight line. So that was probably the easiest material to work with. And so those were my 3 samplers I wanted to share with you guys. And then I just wanted to show you my supplies I don't have a ton of supplies when it comes to stitching. I did actually go to the thrift store. I live in a small town, and so we don't have a craft store here. I have to travel a couple hours away to get to a craft store. But I did run to the thrift store, and I did find some embroidery thread, so that's kind of what I started off with, was using that. And then I also had some crochet thread in my stash, so I did try stitching with a little bit of that. And then after, when at Christmas, when I went to go visit my mom, she did have a baggie of more embroidery thread and some other thread that she had picked up at some various rummage sales, because she does a little bit of stitching or embroidery on baby blankets. And so she did give me a baggie to play with, and I'll just return it when I'm done. Whatever I don't use, I'll give back to her. But at least it gives me a little bit more to play with without having to invest a ton of money into doing this project. And then I also picked out, and I'm not quite sure yet which journal covers. I am going to use one of these Reader Digest covers to create my journal of stitchery. And I'm leaning towards one of these two, but I did want to show you guys what they all look like to start off with. And all of them have really bad spines on them, so no matter what I do, I'll have to rebind them somehow. But again, I'm thinking I want to use probably one of these two books. I just like both of these. I think this one would be fun to actually repeat some of this pattern, maybe on stitching. So as I get better, maybe I can repeat that pattern a little bit on some of my pages. We'll just see what the journal prompts are. Again, I'm trying to use mostly whatever I have in my stash, but I did go out, and when I was through a bigger town, they did have a Hobby Lobby. And so I did buy one stitching book because I didn't have any. And so I did buy this one, A to Z of embroidery. And I think so far all the ones that Rachel and her sister have been sharing with us have been in here, except for one of them. And so it's just been helpful for me to have kind of a visual guide of doing some of these stitches. So I did purchase that, and it was $20 for that one. And then as far as other material, again, I have material in my stash that I've picked up. Most of my material I pick up at the thrift store. And so I'm thinking this material right here I will use for my basic pages. And then whatever we do for the stitching on top of these, just because I have quite a bit of it. Or else I have this little bit thicker, heavier material. So one of those two pieces is going to end up being my pages. And I think I'm going to bind my book the same way as I would a journal, just because I'm familiar with that. So that's how I'm going to do my journal. And then in my stash, I do usually have like a ton of little stuff like this that I pick up at the thrift store. Our thrift store, things like this are pretty cheap. You know, this is something that somebody else had already embroidered. It's, you know, vintage or semi-vintage. And so somehow maybe I'll incorporate some of these things. And again, I have a ton of this stuff. These are just the more of my recent finds at the thrift store. So I pulled those in to just put into my pile. I have lots of little dresser scarves, kind of like this, that maybe I can incorporate in. Here was another embroidery thing, and this one my mom actually picked up for me at a rummage sale or a thrift store, and she only paid 10 cents for it. But it's a pretty big table runner, and there's some hand stitching on it. So maybe I'll be able to incorporate that into my project somehow. Or maybe I can use this in my little title page, and, you know, maybe use this and type Journal of Stitchery or something on that. I don't know. And then here is a couple more little doily things that stitching has been done on that maybe I can use. But again, like I said, I have a ton of these. I thought this one was really nice. This one's an older one. I don't know if it's vintage or semi-vintage, but whoever hand stitched this did it very beautiful. And you can see their back is very clean. So there's just some nice stitching. So it would maybe be nice if I could incorporate this somehow into the journal. This one does have some stains on it. So like I said, it's just kind of repurposing and reusing somebody else's stitching. And I am very fortunate that our thrift store has stuff like this all the time, and usually you know, it's $1.50. And then oftentimes they have like the craft section or the linen, which all these are in the linen section. They'll have that room like 50% off. So then I get them for an even better deal. And then I also pulled this out because I recently got this from my crafty friend Deanna Marie. She sent it in a swap that we're doing, and I thought this has potential of maybe doing some stitching over the flowers. I don't have anything like this else in my stash, so I might incorporate this into my journal. We'll see. And I found these also at the thrift store. There's some little like vintage charms, older charms, and so I thought it might be fun to like stitch on some of these charms onto my pages, you know, kind of like you do buttons. I do have a pretty big stash of buttons. And then this, which is a big box that I also got from my friend Deanna Marie in our swap. But I did want to show you guys, I did put some of my material in here. And half of this is store-bought material, and the other half is all the stuff that, this stuff is all stuff that I found at the thrift store. And again, our thrift stores, pretty good deals for material. Sometimes you can buy a yard or 2 yards and you can get it for $1 or $2. And then they usually tell you on the tags, like here's one of the ones that I picked up recently. They'll usually tell you the length. Like this one was 1 yard, 10 inches by 18 for the length, you know. So they do tell you what the length is when you buy it. And oftentimes they'll also say like good or new or like new. They'll put little notes on it, or they'll even put notes that it's stained. So then you even know without, because I always wrap everything around like that. And then I guess the only other thing in my material bin that I wanted to show you guys is I recently bought some of these materials, and I was going to use them for journal covers, but I did pull them out because I was thinking that they might be kind of fun for this project. And I saw that Rachel's sister Sarah, I think, also showed some material from this same, and I can't remember what her name is. It's it's Kathy something that sells, Kathy Holden, and this is like a flea market mix material. And I know that Roxy's sister Sarah showed some. I think hers was slightly different than mine, but like this one, I thought it would be fun to cut up the little pieces and maybe use it. I was going to use it in making a journal, but it might be fun for this journal. You know, same with this. It has some different vintage, you know, stuff to cut out. And this one I thought was really cute with the birds on it because I love birds. And so I did pick up that. Otherwise, all my other material is just stuff from the thrift store for the most part. And so I just wanted to share those few things with you guys. So again, these are my 3 samplers that I have done so far for Roxy's Journal of Stitchery challenge, and I will try to pop on maybe once a month or so and just kind of share with you guys what I've been working on and how everything is looking so far. Rachel does have there is a Facebook group, so you can, if you want to join in, you can submit like some of your photos and your different projects, what you're working on there. And also if you follow the hashtags Roxy's Journal of Stitchery, people will also be posting pictures there. And also if you use that hashtag on YouTube, there should be a lot of videos that pop up for that too. I know I will use that hashtag also. So if you are curious to see what other people are doing, there are a very number of talented ladies participating in this collab. I've watched some of their videos and looked at some of their posts and everything on Instagram, and I'm definitely inspired and a little intimidated, but I'm still going to play along because stitching's something I've been wanting to learn, and so you got to start somewhere. And again, I guess that's about all I have to share today. So hopefully everyone is doing well, and we will talk to you all later. So have a wonderful day and happy crafting.